Hi, Sarah Backhouse with We First. I'm joined by Malina Brown. She's the Director of Communications for City Year Los Angeles. Welcome, Malina.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Of course. So tell me a little bit about your nonprofit and your role there.
Sure. City Year Los Angeles is working to end the dropout crisis in Los Angeles. About a quarter of kids drop out every year in Los Angeles, and that's actually a huge uptick in recent years. So what we do is we mobilize young people, kind of akin to an urban Peace Corps, and we take them during a year of service, deploy them to the lowest performing schools, and have them work with the lowest performing children within those lowest performing schools to get them back on track. Because we know if we get them back on track by 10th grade, they're 4 times more likely to graduate.
Interesting. So tell me about the organization's purpose and how that's reflected in your storytelling.
Sure. I mean, we're certainly mission driven. We are as a nonprofit, we're here to end the dropout crisis, and we're using young people to do so. So all our messaging, all our storytelling is coming through that lens. We have a core here in Los Angeles, and that's what we call the people giving their years of service. They're AmeriCorps members, we call them core members. And we have about 300 here in Los Angeles. And so these are young people who already are tech savvy. They're already really idealistic and excited about their mission, and they're living it day in and out. So what my job as a communications director has been is how to figure out how to get those stories out from them, because they're the authentic storytellers, not me sitting at a desk back at my office. And so figuring out how to get them on Twitter, on Instagram, sharing their stories on Facebook, doing vines and videos and whatnot, and participating in that way. I think City Year as a nonprofit, as well as perhaps other nonprofits as well, tend to have a very modest culture. We don't want to take too much credit for what we're doing. We're really dedicated to the work, and so there's a sense of marketing and PR in general being the fluff, the extra that we want to, that takes us away from our mission. And what we're trying to drive through culturally is that it's part of your mission is to bear witness, that these stories need to be told, of these transformation stories of what's happening in these schools where literally half of kids are not graduating in some of our schools in Los Angeles, miles away from schools where the biggest problem is, which Ivy League college you're going to go to.
Right.
And that inequity isn't right. And we need those stories to be told, and the stories of how those students are making progress to also be told.
Yeah, perhaps you could share with us, it sounds fascinating, an example or a case study for someone who's succeeded, and then maybe even the social media channels where that story played out.
Well, that's a good question. These are stories that are happening daily, and to be fair, not all these stories are so simple. It's not all we're taking, this failing student who was, pondering joining a gang and now he's off to med school.
Right.
It's really not these simple stories like that, like you see in Hollywood.
Sure.
And they're happening day in and out. Sometimes these stories are really kids that were several grade levels behind, just getting caught up. Mm-hmm. So sometimes that C is a huge victory, even if it may not seem so on the outside. And that's the complication of the story, right? Is figuring out how to make that clear to those that are outside our audiences. We had a fantastic piece of media relations last spring, an LA Times feature story. And while the story itself was fantastic about how our organization worked, in many ways for me, and at the time, frankly, I was new to the organization, helping get those stories and sitting through those conversations was just as enlightening. Hearing teachers who seemed really dedicated and excited about their jobs talk about classrooms of 45 kids in it, and how are you supposed to meet the needs of all of those 45 kids in an English lit class? How do you even edit all those papers and give them the attention? So even just having another service member, a member of City Year in that room, a trusted adult that can help and take students out if they need a little extra attention, or do what we call push-in, sit next to them and help them with those maybe problem sets or whatnot during class, how much that helped the teacher rise to his performance. And then from students' perspective, some kids, it's in some ways, there's the kids that are the high achievers and then the kids that are a mess and then they're making maybe disruptive. A lot of what we work with is those kids in the middle, maybe the quiet kids who are struggling, but they're struggling quietly and no one knows what's going on with them. And that's where City Year can have a real impact in helping those kids get the kind of mentorship, tutoring, and role models that they need to get them back on track and make sure that they get to graduation. And those adult cares about them and is consistently there day in and day out.
How about some challenges or lessons that you've learned along the way?
Absolutely. Well, and I should say that I'm still very new. I'm about 6 months into working on our marketing plan. So I would say we're all one big challenge now, and I hope to have more successes at the back end.
Sure.
I think the real challenge is in many ways what I talked about. I mean, I'm coming from a corporate world of advertising and PR firms. and I'm used to big budgets and billboards and TV commercials and all the rest. I joined a nonprofit, my budget is less than that. But,
sure.
And so it's having to be crafty and clever about how we get those stories. A lot of what we're talking about here, how to source those stories. So it's not just me pushing out content, but me cultivating content and getting people excited to share those stories. And the hurdle of making that ground fertile, I suppose, for those stories to be told.
Malina Brown, thank you so much.
Thank you.